I never knew this was a category that I had to judge games on, but the stickiness of the tongues and or tentacles is perfect. 10 out of 10. Welcome and welcome back, everybody. Tia here, and in today's video, we are going to be exploring a much requested topic on the channel, and that is my top 10 games that surprised me. There are very few things better in this world than getting a brand new board game that you've fallen in love with, but when it hits you out of nowhere, when it catches you by surprise, and you find yourself getting all those little butterflies in your stomach and wanting to play it over and over again, that is a particularly special feeling. And we'll be exploring that today with 10 games that I did not expect to like, but that have become staples in my collection. If you do end up enjoying this video or finding it helpful, please do consider giving it a like. It helps the video get out to a wider audience of people who may be surprised at how much they enjoy these games, just like I was, or just like you might be. But without further ado, let's get started. Number 10 on this list is a game that I randomly pulled off a shelf at my local game store because it looked nice. I was very early into my board gaming career, and it turns out that this is a game that not only do I have in my collection, but I have gifted it to pretty much everybody I know, and that is Unearth from Brotherwise Games. Unearth has some interesting elements. It's a game where you're going to be rolling dice and trying to get majorities on cards, hitting a certain target number in order to vie for claim of these different ruins. Along the way, you'll also be collecting stones to build monuments. This game has some elements of area control, which is not my favorite thing, so I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. I had very little information about the game going in, very little information about the hobby, and as soon as I played it, I was shook. This game has such a beautiful presentation, and the area control dynamics don't feel as mean-spirited as in your typical area control game. It's all about numbers and math and timing. And although there are die rolls, which can be very random, it's very well mitigated because if you get a low die roll, you get a stone, which allows you to build a monument. And through doing so, you can build a little bit of an engine, or you can go for straight points. You can also just try to get high die rolls to collect ruins. And if you don't get a ruin, you always get a Delver card, which will help to mitigate some of that luck with the die rolls in future turns and give you more control as the game progresses. I just think that this game is a really excellent length. It's very accessible to a wide group of people, both in terms of its mechanics and its aesthetic and theme. This is a game that just gives me a lot of nostalgic feelings. It's been with me throughout almost my entire board game journey, and playing it again even today, years later, and sharing it with others just reaffirms my love for this game and all those amazing feelings I had the very first time I played it. So my number 10 for this list is Unearth from Brotherwise Games. Number 9 on this list is the game that shouldn't work, but definitely does, and that is Sticky Cthulhu and Sticky Chameleon. If you're not familiar, this is a game where you get those sticky tongues or sticky hands, like the ones you get out of those little gashapon vending machines, but you're going to be using them to pick up different shits off the table. And you're going to do so as speedily as possible. You'll roll 2 dice, one for the color, one for the shape, try to suss out where the matching chit is, and then use your sticky appendage to grab it as quickly as possible. I'm not gonna lie, when I heard about this, I thought gimmick, children's game, not gonna work. These games are so well made. Like, I never knew this was a category that I had to judge games on, but the stickiness of the tongues and or tentacles is perfect. 10 out of 10. And you can wash them and they become re-sticky all over again. It's amazing. I don't know what else to say. I love speed games. I did not think this one would work, but this is one of the most fun games I own in my collection. It's one that if I ever have a chance to, I know not everybody's a fan of dexterity or speed games. However, anytime there is an inkling of a chance that I get to whip one of these out, you bet you I am all over it. And whether or not you like dexterity games or speed games, I have to say that this is a game I feel like everyone should try at some point because the experience of it all is just so unique and It's so fun. Even if you suck at the game, even if you hate the game itself, I promise it is a good time with the right group. So my number 9 on this list of surprising games is Sticky Cthulhu and Sticky Chameleon. Number 7 is a very understated game that I didn't know a lot going into. It was introduced to me by a friend, and that is Phil Walker Harding's Gingerbread House. In Gingerbread House, you're going to be using cookie-style dominoes to stack together and on top of each other in order to build a gingerbread house that has the right combination of cookies to lure in and appeal to various fairy tale creatures. I do really enjoy puzzle games. The domino aspect turned me off initially until I found out that you were stacking them on top of each other, which is a really unique and fresh twist on kind of the tiling mechanic where you're having to cover certain symbols. And if you cover the same symbol twice, you can get bonus. When you complete a section and lure in a creature, you can get a wild token, which helps you to complete different objectives. I'm not the biggest fan of tiling games. However, Gingerbread House really kind of freshens that up because you have the very familiar domino kind of aesthetic, but you're stacking them on top of each other. And it's not about necessarily what is adjacent to what, but rather what you cover as you're stacking up and building your gingerbread house. I just think it's a really interesting twist on tiling. It's visually really appealing to be setting up your house, to lure all your creatures in. And I think overall, it's just a very endearing game. This is a game that's very non-offensive. There's not one thing that you're like, ooh, shiny, really amazing. But it takes some elements that feel very familiar and just puts them together in such a well-rounded package. And I love the fact that in the main variant, when you complete a level, you get a special card that will give you unique endgame scoring. So each game feels different, even though you're going through similar motions each time. There are also some promo cards that have some really fun ways of how you can lure them in or different powers that they can use. This is just a game that anytime I can play it, I'm always down to, and it really fulfills that pattern building set collection itch. So that is Phil Walker Harding's Gingerbread House. The next game on this list is from a publisher and designer whose games I appreciate, but I am not personally the biggest fan of because of the genre of games. However, this game really steps outside of that and has become one of the games that just puts a smile on my face every time I see it, and that is Rome from designer Ryan Lockett. Rome is a game where you're going to have a party of travelers going throughout and trying to restore memories to those who have been placed under a mysterious spell. As you go through, you're going to be placing out patterns of chits onto the board in order to establish control of certain areas, which will then become characters that will allow you to explore even further into different locations. As I said with Unearth, area control, area majority, not my favorite mechanic, but put together with this puzzling tile aspect in Rome is it's genius. I love it so much. It puts together those elements in a way where it doesn't necessarily feel mean in order to get the points that you need to get to the areas you want to be in. And I love the patterning has a little bit of an abstract feel, but I do think that the theme in this game is so well integrated. It could have been a purely abstract game, but the whole story and sentiment behind going out and finding these characters and the little flavor text, like for example, there's an animal pack and there's a kiwi bird, Lolo the pack bird, and it's like they say what the characters are doing when you find them. And so it's just like Lolo the pack bird was chewing on an old sock. And it's just very endearing. You feel like you can really get a sense of these characters and this kind of atmosphere and worlds that Ryan Lockett has created. And I feel like that's one of the things he's well known for in a lot of his campaign games, is creating a universe, creating a story. I'm not necessarily a fan of all of that when you have to do a lot of reading. I think Rome takes those storytelling elements that Ryan Lockett is so well known for and puts them into a really mechanically solid game without being overbearing, where you're getting a taste of the world, where you're getting to participate and meet these characters, but not necessarily in a story-focused way. I think it's a really nice balance, and the playtime for this game is really excellent as well. So it's not going to be a campaign game that you have to sit down and spend hours and hours on. You can just take it out, play it in 45 minutes to an hour, and then put it away. So this is one that, like I said, just based on the entire body of work and the style of game usually produced, I didn't necessarily think would be for me, but Rome takes all of those elements and puts them into a Tia-friendly package. So that is Rome from Ryan Lockett. Do you ever see a game that has a theme you love, that has art you love, and then you have to say, whoa, wait, this is super overdone. It's probably not a good game if they have to rely on that. That's exactly what I thought about my next pick, which is Hats from Thundergriff Games. But as you know, I was pleasantly surprised by the amazing depth of gameplay that this game has to offer. Hats is a great example of one of those set collection games where you don't necessarily get what you put down. In each round, you're going to be playing a card to the main board by matching either the color or playing a higher value number. And then you'll be taking the card that you replace into your personal set. Now, it's especially interesting because at the end of the game, what is out on the board dictates how many points each card in the set is worth. So players are constantly vying for, okay, blue is worth 5 points, now it's worth 2 points, now it's worth nothing, now it's worth 3 points. And there's a lot of tension and back and forth and interaction with that. Going into Hats, Lost Cities was one of my favorite 2-player quick little card games where, again, there's a lot of risk reward with how scoring ends up in the end, and you're trying to get sets of cards. Hats takes all of that and really bumps it up and amplifies it, I think, with the theme and the art for me personally. And I love the control that you have and the planning that you have. It really requires you to interact with your opponent or opponents to see what they're playing, what they might be going for, which cards they may have left, what scoring will look like in the end. I just think it's really cool. And one of the elements that I really love about the endgame scoring is that you end up with one single card, which is your favorite hat. And then you're going to subtract the value of that card from the sum of the same colored hats that you have in your sets at the end of the game. So there's like that extra little tension of, ooh, I want to play this because this card is helpful, but I want to use it as my favorite hat color. So there are a lot of really juicy little elements to consider in this very condensed down, very compact card game that I think just play so beautifully. And again, this is a game that's very inviting to a wide range of people, I feel. Just cards, just some set collection, hardly any rules or things you do on your turn. You can swap out a card and then you play a card and pick one up. That's it. Overall, this is a game that immediately jumped into my top 20 list. I mean, I don't have an official one, but in my brain, I have an unofficial top 20 list, and it has definitely earned its place there over the years and is here to stay. So that is Hats. Next up is a game that I was definitely not only expecting much from, but pretty turned off by initially. Just based on the theme and the artwork and the overall description of the game, I thought, there's a million games like it. I would rather have something more beautiful, more thematic, etc., etc. But that is Lorenzo Il Magnifico, the card game Masters of the Renaissance. In Masters of the Renaissance, you are going to be building up a tableau of cards that will help you convert certain resources into another. There is a fancy little marble track which will help you to get resources each round, but that's about it. That's the extent of the game. Get resources, convert them, make points. Sounds super amazing, right? And I also thought, Lorenzo Il Magnifico is a well-established game. Now they're making a card game version of it. Like, let's be honest, friends. There have been a lot of things recently that are questionable in terms of turning big names into a card game, a dice game, a roll and write, a flip and fill, a 2-player game, a dual version, a cooperative. It's getting a little much with the IPs these days. However, this game, oh my word, I cannot even describe. And I was wary of the marbles because I thought, that's a little gimmicky. I already have Potion Explosion, like, whatever. Let's just back up a moment. I love board gaming. I play games very frequently. However, I do not often play the same game multiple times back to back. Maybe sometimes I'll learn it on my own or with one other person, and then I'll bring it to a game night and they'll be like, that was nice. Maybe we'll come back to it a few weeks from now, or a couple months from now, or maybe a year from now. And that's fine for me. I like my variety. This game, within the first month or two of purchasing it, I played it at least 5, 6, 7 times. I don't know what my play count is at quite yet. I would have to look it up, but it's a game that I wanted to play with everybody all the time. And sometimes with games, I'll be like, okay, play it with these people that haven't played it, play it with these friends that haven't played it, these friends haven't played it, and then we'll put it away. This game, I'm like, no, every time people come over, no matter how many times I've dragged them to the table to play Masters of the Renaissance, I'm like, hey, so, you guys want to play some Masters of the Renaissance? Yeah. There's just such a clean and satisfying game. And one of the things that wasn't really highlighted going in was your storehouse. You have these 3 shelves, right? And each shelf can only hold 1, 2, or 3 of a particular kind of resource that you get from the marble track. And you can't have the same resource on multiple shelves. In order to build up a reserve, you have to run your engine and convert those resources into other things that will go into your store box. And oh my gosh, I love that tension, because if you take extra resources that you cannot store, it negatively impacts you by moving them up on their faith track. Like, who thinks of that? It's so tight and crunchy, and it plays so smoothly. The turns are very quick. Going through the engine and building it is super satisfying. This game mechanically for me, I think when I did my solo party video on it, I said something about it being my mechanical soulmate or something. I don't remember the wording exactly, but that still holds true. So if you like engine builders and you like tight games that play very quickly, that are super streamlined, you also definitely need to check out Masters of the Renaissance, the Lorenzo Il Magnifico card game. Game number 4 on this list, I'm going to be honest, is a game that I never would have touched in a million years unless it was brought to the table by people I trust. And that is Santa Maria from designers Christian Utsby and Elif Svensson. Santa Maria is a dice drafting, tile laying, engine building game. So what you're going to be doing each round is taking dice, which will activate the tiles in a certain column or row, and will trigger certain abilities that you have previously laid out by purchasing various tiles. These actions will allow you to acquire and convert resources, which will then allow you to purchase more tiles and build your engine in that way, and fulfill goods, which will build another separate engine on the side, which will trigger at the end of each round for income. So again, tiling, I keep saying this, I'm gonna have to in the comments down below if I'm just in denial about how much I love tiling games, because honestly, I'm starting to notice a pattern here. But tiling is not my favorite element. I do like dice drafting, I do like engine building. There are a lot of elements here that sound pretty nice, unique powers, endgame scoring, etc. But the overall theme, the overall aesthetic, everything about it, when I saw it, heard about it, I'm like, looks dry, sounds dry. Again, there are probably other games that do it just as well with a theme that's more appealing to me or what have you. No. Everything in this game just works so well. And there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of little things going on. Like I said, you have your engine on your main board with triggering the columns and rows. And not only that, but the dice that you take will trigger those rows, and then they will land on the last available space, blocking it off. So you can't just run the same engine over and over and over again. That is not the most efficient way to go through it, which is really cool, because in a lot of engine builders, let's be honest, some of them outstay their welcome. You get to a point where you're like, this is my engine, it's good, I'm just going to keep running it and getting points and running out the timer. Can't do that in this game. You also have the engine of fulfilling certain contracts, and based on the row that they're coming from, you're going to get end of the round bonuses, which will give you different abilities on certain tracks, like more dice, more endgame scoring opportunities, more income of money, and things like that. You can also use money to trigger specific spots on your engine, but again, it clogs it up, because once you've used that spot, you cover it with the coins you've used, and you can't use it again. There are so many cool things about this game that I haven't necessarily seen done quite like this, and definitely not all together with these mechanics. So Santa Maria, again, is one of those games that's a little longer than the typical games that I would like to play. And, you know, this is me being like, oh, I like it when there are 2 rules in a game. It's a little more rules heavy than I typically gravitate towards in my go-to games. But this has become a go-to game that I want to play with everybody, want to share with everybody. If somebody suggests it, it doesn't matter how tired I am, I would say no to 50 other games that are half this length. But if they say Santa Maria, I'm like, all right, I'm awake. Let's go. I'm down. If you can look past the happiness points, which are the points for the game, I'm so sorry. Trigger warning in 3, 2, 1. If you can look past these beautiful, gorgeous tokens and focus on the mechanics of the game, it is an absolute wonderful experience to play it if you're into those elements that I talked about. So that is Santa Maria from Aporta Games. Game number 3 is the tiniest little game on this list, and that is Photograph from designer Sashi. Photograph is a game where you are going to be collecting sets of cards, going out on the town, snapping photos from the field, taking them into your hand, and then laying them out in a grid. The main thing about this game is that you are not allowed to freely reorder the cards in your hand. The more cards you take from the field, the more cards that you have to lay out into your scrapbook. And that balance of risk reward, of timing, of set collection is so great. I love that the backs of the cards have the numbers on them. Each set has numbers 1 through 12. And then the back of your opponent's cards or the backs of cards in the field will either have a number 1 through 6 or 7 through 12. So you always at all times have some information about what is out there, what the potentials are for numbers you can get. And you can't just lay down cards freely. They have to be within a certain range of the previous cards played, and they have to be in ascending or descending order. This game has so many tight elements. It has so many cool little things like the backs of the cards having the clues about which cards they could be potentially. It's just such a cool little game. This is one that I feel like if I could just keep it with me everywhere at all times and just whip it out no matter where I am, I would. And the theme is really endearing and charming and quirky. The art is absolutely amazing. The atmosphere that this game brings to the table, it honestly gets me emotional even just thinking about it. But we're gonna move past that right now, because overall as a package, this game it's such a tiny little box. It looks so unassuming, but it has such a big impact in terms of being a little brain burner, pulling at my heartstrings. It's just overall a fantastic package. And if you ever get a chance to play Photograph, aka Wind the Film, please make sure that you take the opportunity to sit down and get it played, because I have a feeling that you may love it just as much as I do. Number 2 on this list was definitely a surprise for me. However, if y'all have been here on the channel, I'm sure it's not going to be a surprise for you. That is Railroad Inc. from designers Helmar Hatch and Lorenzo Silva. Railroad Inc. is a roll and write style game where you're going to be rolling dice that have various types of routes on them. You will then be creating a map using railroads and highways in order to create the most efficient routes and score the most points. I'm sure many of you already know how I feel about this series of games, but when they were first released, I was very against it. It was during the time that roll and writes were becoming super popular, and I thought, oh great, another roll and write. Oh nice, it's got beautiful watercolor art. Oh, they're releasing a red and a blue version. I got into an argument because I said, like, what do they think they are? Frickin' Pokemon? Like, who's gonna buy the same game twice for 2 different elements with the little mini expansion dice? That's ridiculous. It's a scam. I don't want anything to do with it. Well, y'all might know how that has changed. My goodness, I absolutely love these games. They're by far my most played series of games, both online and in person. It's such a satisfying game at its core of creating the routes, using the dice to the best of your abilities, trying to time when to use your special routes, and the additions that they've had, especially in recent years with all of the mini expansions, provide so much flavor, so many different styles of gameplay, so many different aesthetics and themes, and they all work super well. I love the fact that you can upgrade it now with the solo board, with the epic board, and you can play 2 mini expansions at once. I really love the challenge cards and the new buildings and the challenge versions of the game. Like, there is so much juiciness. And again, even if you just own one single base game, I feel like the value is phenomenal. Owning literally the entire collection, I do not feel like a single dollar was wasted. You can even use multiple sets to use those base white dice and draft dice from play to play, which if you're into drafting, hey, and you want to spice it up, if you've played this game like thousands of times like I have, that's a really cool way that you can get a lot of value out of multiple sets that doesn't feel like a shoe-in. It feels like a very viable option for playing. Like I said, I know this probably isn't a surprise for anybody at home, considering the breadth of up here, wherever I'm gonna put a card. Considering the breadth of coverage this game has received on the channel, but it was a surprise to me when I first got into it. And even, I will be honest, even though I loved Blue and Red, when they announced the Kickstarter with all the extra expansions, there was a part of me that thought, yeah, okay, how far can they really take this? As soon as I got the box and delved into the entire breadth of the series, I just, like any future Railroad Inc. content, I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth for saying this. Horrible Guild, please do not take advantage of this poor, tiny Asian child, but any future Railroad Inc. content that is released, I have no reservations about purchasing. Let's just put it that way. So that is my number 2 pick for games that surprised me, Railroad Inc. from Horrible Games. Last up on this list is another game that probably will be no surprise to anybody who's been here before. But again, at the time, I had no idea that this particular game would become my absolute favorite game of all time, and that is Capital Lux, now known as Capital Lux 2 Generations. This is a set collection game where you are going to be drafting a hand of cards over the course of 3 rounds and playing them to either the capital, a central grid shared by all players, or to your hometown, your personal stock of cards that will score at the end of the round and at the end of the game. The interesting thing about Capital Lux is that the cards you play to the center will dictate a target threshold for the cards you can have in your hometown at the end of the round, and it's going to be manipulated by all players. You'll also get special action benefits for playing to the capital because you are potentially benefiting all players and increasing the limit that they can have in their hometown. I saw this about Photograph, and it's similar just with Capital Lux. This box is big. The original box is very small. At its core, if you're just playing the 4 base game powers, it's just a little deck of cards with a couple tokens. A game of this size, component-wise, has no right to be as in-depth and amazing as it is. And I just remember seeing it and be like, oh, the art's pretty. I didn't buy it on the first glance, though, because I thought, pretty box. There's probably not a whole lot going on there. But going back, purchasing it the next time, I couldn't help myself. And playing it, I thought, oh my word, I'm so glad that I got a copy of this game because every little detail is accounted for, how tie breaks are resolved, how the balancing of powers works. Even at first glance, it might seem like they don't work together, but they do. Like, there was so much thought put into this package. It's so condensed, it's so tight, there's high player interaction, similar to what I said with hats, but this takes it even a step further and gives you those different powers that you get by playing to the center. And you always have that choice of play to the center, play to my hometown, play at the center, play to my hometown. Games go super quickly. I found that this is a really easy teach. You can mix up the different powers for the capital from game to game now with Capital Lux 2. And there's just so much in such a beautifully packaged game. So in case you haven't already, purchase Capital Lux 2. This is a game that you definitely need to check out. And I know I've said it 1,000 times that this game is one that you could play with anybody. Hardcore gamers, family who don't really play games. It's so accessible. It's so well made. The design is so well thought out. There's no stone left unturned. Like, just this is the game to have on hand for any occasion. And it's definitely a game that I'm down to play on any occasion. So that is my number one surprising game on this list, Capital Lux or Capital Lux 2 from Aporta Games. So there you have it. Those are my 10 top most surprising games. Let me know in the comments down below, what games have you played that really caught you off guard and surprised you with how much you enjoy them? I would personally love to hear your recommendations, and be sure to check out what other games people love down below. I would hazard to guess you'll find some amazing other games to check out in addition to the 10 on this list here today. And speaking of sharing the love, if you haven't already, please do give the video a like. It really helps out the channel and helps this video get out to a wide range of audience. And if you would like to, you can of course subscribe and click the bell for notifications to see any future board game content on the channel. It's a really small thing, but it goes a long way. So I appreciate all y'all do for the channel and for board gaming in general. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Overall, this is a game that immediately jumped. Jesus